Children of...
I want to speak to your manager.
What's your most embarrassing experience? When I was a young child on a long-distance flight, my mother let me and my brother sleep on the floor. For safety reasons, the flight attendants told my mother that we weren't allowed to sleep on the floor. She started to argue with the flight attendants, who then turned to the pilots. The pilots threatened to turn the plane around unless we got up from the floor, but she continued to argue. The pilots announced that they were about to turn around because of my mother, so all the passengers got pissed. Eventually, she caved in when she had all the passengers, flight and crew on a Boeing 747 against her. Ugh, my dad can be such a prick if you get his order wrong. It could be a fast food or a nice sit-down restaurant. He often yells at the waitstaff if they undercook his steak. It has to be well done, or he claims he has lost his appetite. One time, we went to Burger King when I was younger and we sat down to eat. He took one bite of his burger, spit it out immediately, and started bitching about it being undercooked. He cut everyone in line to yell at the cashier, then asked who was the cook. When the cook appeared, he launched his burger, hitting the poor kid directly in the face with the littlest burger. He's now banned for life from Burger King. Not my parent, but my grandparent. When I was around 10 years old, my grandmother went out and got us, her, my brother, and me, McDonald's. We got home, we didn't have napkins in the bags. No big deal, right? We have paper towels and napkins in the house. Also, me and my brother are pretty good with not making any messes while we eat. Nope. Grandmother got us in the car, drove us back to McDonald's, demanded a manager, and screeched about how upset she was that we didn't get any napkins. I just wanted to melt in the floor and disappear. It's just napkins, Nanny. Not me, but one that I witnessed. I was at a cell phone store a few years ago. This was when phones first started becoming water resistant. A kid had apparently gone swimming with his phone all day and the phone had some discoloration to the screen, and the touchscreen wasn't working correctly. The kid obviously knew he screwed up and he just kept asking his mom if they could just leave, that the phone still worked and he would survive. The mom didn't even try to be civil. She came in and immediately started to be an abusive customer. I remember she laughed and said, "Oh, you're gonna hate me. You should just get your manager now." My mother-in-law truly is a Karen. Going out to eat with her is always a nightmare. Her orders have 14 special requests, but she's not at all kind about it. She's defensive from the get-go, like you're an idiot who's already screwed the order up. No salad dressing, not on the side, nothing, completely dry. Do you understand? I will send it back. The one I will never forget was the dinner at Joe's Crab Shack. In case you've never been, it's one of those places that every so often plays a song and the entire staff is required to drop everything and do a little synchronized dance to. It's quick, everyone gets a kick out of it, it's part of the fun. Now my mother-in-law Karen knew this. It's not like she'd never been there, but apparently she wasn't willing to wait 2 extra minutes for her dry salad. So she starts going off as soon as the dancing starts. She gets a manager who clearly knows Karen well and offers a quick apology for doing their job, a discount and her dry ass salad, but Karen's not completely satisfied. She tells us that even though dinner for our party of 8 is on her, she's not tipping the waitress 1 penny. She proceeds to bitch loudly and the rest of the meal and antagonize our waitress over petty shit. I worked too many years in customer service and you know, I'm a decent human being. I made sure to get my bill separate so I could tip for the entire table. I wrote a quick note on the receipt, something along the lines of, "Way to stay positive even when the customer's a jerk." I was a little afraid of the wrath of Karen. It was my first interactions with her too. But when the waitress came and hugged me, Karen and I locked eyes. She knew I didn't care. Don't be a cunt, Karen. Scene. Any fast food drive-thru. Worker. "Ma'am, can you please drive forward a little bit while your food finishes up?" Mom. "No." Folds arms. My grandmother wasn't only a "let me talk to your manager" type, she was a racist. And advancing in dementia, completely turned off her filter for that. I've blocked out all the context behind it other than I took her to buy yarn and something went wrong. I think maybe they shortened her a couple of bucks or wouldn't honor a coupon or something. Whenever it ended in a "let me talk to your manager" followed by a tirade to the manager about how they shouldn't be hiring Mexicans, I just remember having to talk over her and say, "Oh my god, you can't talk to her like that. Nothing you just said is okay." Followed by me trying to push her wheelchair out of the store as fast as possible while her digging her feet into the ground trying to get me to stop so she could try and ruin someone's day. And me wondering if I'd go to jail for elder abuse if her ankle snapped in the process because nothing was going to stop me from getting her out of that store. I got her in the car and then went back to apologize till I was blue in the face. I wish I could say it's an isolated incident, but it definitely wasn't. If by any chance any sales clerk or phone reps that had to deal with my grandmother are reading this thread, I am so incredibly sorry. I apologize on behalf of my whole family. I'd give you a hug if I could. As an interesting side effect of caring for her, I have a tendency to wander off and look at things when we get to the register if I'm with someone and I'm not the one paying. I think she gave me an honest-to-God phobia. When I was 6, my mom took my brothers and I out to Golden Corral for dinner. She went up to the buffet, got a steak, and came back to the table. She's an avid A1 steak sauce fan, and I cannot emphasize enough she can't eat steak without it. She poured out A1 onto her plate, tasted it, and was instantly horrified. She proceeded to pour out the Golden Corral steak sauce right next to the A1, and it matched perfectly. Outraged, she called the waitress over and eventually the manager, showing them her little experiment and how she exposed the great steak sauce fraud of '06. My brothers and I were scarred for the rest of our lives. I still have nightmares about it. Not me, but my sister-in-law. Her stepdad and mom took the family out to eat at a Red Lobster. They get there and it's super busy. So the stepdad walks up to the host and says, "Yes, we have a reservation." The problem is, Red Lobster, or at least that one, doesn't take reservations. The host explains this and says it's going to be a 20-minute wait for seating. Her stepdad flipped out and started screaming that he had called 3 hours beforehand and made a reservation. The host had told him that this was not possible as they do not take reservations again. He continues to scream at the guy and says he wants to talk to the manager. So the manager comes out and tells him the same thing. They don't take reservations, so it's not possible that he made one. He continues to cause a scene and people start leaving just to get away from this toxic guy. Finally, the manager says, "Fine, we'll put you ahead of everyone else that has been patiently waiting their turn." He says thank you and we get seated. Once we got to the table and the waitress walked away, he slyly winks and says to my brother and the rest of the family, "That is how you get things done. I wasn't going to wait 20 minutes. I was 13 when this happened. My mom had made a reservation at a hotel for a trip, but when she got there, the lady said there was some error with the reservation and that my mom's payment didn't go through. So the lady offered us a double bedroom for a discount. Rather than just taking the room, thanking the lady and leaving, my mom decided the best course of action would be to scream in the middle of the hotel lobby, "Nobody is going anywhere till I get my fucking room." She then proceeded to pester the lady, who clearly couldn't do anything about it, until she eventually called the police on my mom for public disturbance. It was mortifying. My mom needed to return some shirts at the mall because they didn't fit right. It was past the allotted time she had to return them, so the employees said there wasn't anything she could do. My mom started screaming at this girl who was probably 16 or 17, calling her names and demanding to speak to the manager. When the manager told my mom they couldn't do anything and that the return policy was on the receipt, my mom threw a fit and knocked over the display that was right next to the register and stormed out of the store. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time and I was mortified. I had apologized for her behavior and picked up what I could before she started calling for me to follow her. The manager was super sweet to me though and told me that I was a good kid and to stick up to my mom when I could get away with it. Not a child, but I think this fits. I had this awful, annoying as fuck, terrible neighbor because I'm a giant sucker I was kind to. She asked me to come to dinner with her because it was her birthday, and I knew I was the only person on the planet who would go with her, and gosh darn it, it's her birthday, so how could I say no? So she and I went and we brought our kids, all girls, one mine, two hers. She makes her oldest do the math homework right there at the table. When the child asks for help, mind you, it's like 3rd grade math. Mom says it's too hard. I ended up helping. The waiter is just fine. He comes by and he takes our orders. She's already acting weird, but she's always acting weird, so I didn't think much of it. The waiter comes by again and asks if I need anything. She dismisses him and waves him off and tells him no. Then, like 30 seconds later, she turns to me and is like, "Can you believe how awful this waiter is? He won't even refill my drink," and goes on about all these issues that literally don't exist. I'm like, "He just asked you if you needed anything." She cuts me off. "I'm going to talk to the manager." Oh god. She talks to the manager like it's her worst experience she's ever had in history of her miserable experience. I'm in shock. Her kids have their heads down. Mine is oblivious. The manager gives her half off the meal. Oh, and the kicker? That's my half, so you only need to pay the rest. Oh gee, thanks. I left a big tip and a note on the receipt telling them the waiter was great and apologizing for the complaints that were totally not warranted. It was the second most embarrassing restaurant experience of my life. My mother is a nightmare with customer service, even with the fact that I, her daughter, works in customer service and deals with people like her on the daily. So many incidents stick out in my mind, but one that really embarrasses me was when we were at Walmart. The stalker was struggling and dropped their price scanner thing on the ground. I was going to help her gather her things she was struggling with when my mom came out like a bat out of hell and yelled, "You know, you should really pick that up. People could trip." And then she darted off with a cart. I was so embarrassed, I just walked away in shame. And when I pointed it out to my mom that the girl dropped it on accident, she said, well, she should be more careful. I was with my parents on vacation, and the hotel put charges on the bill by accident. My mom marched to the front desk and demanded to see the manager. There was a long line, but she cut right in front of it. The manager wasn't very helpful, probably because she was rude. So my mom went to all the other customers in line and told them the hotel was a scam and they were ripping us off with fake charges. She made a scene. The hotel called the police and we were escorted off the premises by actual cops. I died inside. I grew up in a smaller town right on the cusp of its big growth boom. We all knew our town had made it when we finally got an Olive Garden. We used to eat there 2 to 3 times a month. My mom and I would always split an entree and my dad would get his own. We knew the rule. If you're splitting an entree and you get more than one of the family style bowls of salad, then you'll get charged an extra $4 for the extra person, which is fair. 2 entrees come with 2 unlimited salads. Well, one day my dad decided he wanted more salad. Only he wants the additional salad, but the waitress said if she refills the bowl, that will be charged an extra $4. Well, lo and behold, my parents threw the biggest tantrum because he only wanted the additional salad. They demanded to speak to the manager and the manager explained the rule, which we knew, but offered to comp the extra salad just to get my parents to stop yelling, and they did. When our bill came, the manager comped our dad's entree and the additional salad fee. Well, my mom got up, interrupted the manager while he was talking to other guests and threw the check in his face and asked, "What is this?" She was furious that he comped my dad's meal. He ate the meal, therefore we would like to pay for it. She wouldn't stop raising her voice until she was allowed to pay for the meal, but not the salad. The manager was confused, but obliged. When they brought the change, the manager slipped in a few free appetizer coupons. My mom ripped them up and threw them on the ground as she left. Safe to say I didn't eat out with them for at least a month, and I still refused to go to Olive Garden with them. A grocery store had this sign up that if an item rang higher than advertised price, it was free. It was the 80s, and stores did stupid shit like this that I never see in stores today. Mom was buying a box of Little Debbie cakes and they rang up for $2.85 instead of the advertised $2.50. So now mom wants her free cakes. Cashier doesn't know what to do. Summons manager. Manager tells her to ring up the sale otherwise and he'll be right back. Comes back and hands my mother the 35 cents and cheerfully says, "There you go." My mother points to the sign behind him and he says, "Oh, the last manager put that up. It doesn't make any sense. I'm the new manager and I just haven't had the sign removed yet." It was a printed plastic sign that was screwed into the wall. Mom insists that they honor their sign. He says, "Nah." Now up to this point, as an adult looking back, I am totally on board with my mother's actions. Mom gathers her things, decides against taking the Little Debbie's on principle, and we get into the car. Mom wordlessly drives downtown to the main store of this 3 to 5 store chain. Knowing the office is next door, we walk into this perfectly 80s wood paneled office, where my mother asks the secretary to speak to the owner of the store and is permitted to do so since this is a family-owned business, and their corporate office is smaller than the row of cubicles my staff occupy at work. Here, my mother unleashes a tirade about how she has lost faith in his brand and how the world is meaningless since they won't honor their sign. The guy stands up, profusely apologizes, validates her anger, and then pulls out his wallet and hands her a $5 bill, along with the promise that he will speak to the manager and the sign will either be honored or removed. We got home and we find out the ice cream we bought melted in the trunk because summer and ruined the cereal and bread. Right, so my mom and me went shopping and she dropped a melon on the way out. She claimed it was bruised and demanded a full refund. When they refused, she shouted at customer service and demanded the manager. I just sat there with a kill me now expression on my face. After one of the customer service employees gave me a chocolate bar, so 7-year-old me was happy. This is a weird story that had a huge impact on me. About a parent talking to a manager, but it's a little different. Growing up, my dad was a sheriff of a small town. I must have been around 8 or 9. He was brought in after the previous sheriff was booted for political reasons / stealing city funds. This was really an unpopular move since he was super popular and would spread his money all around town and let people get away with murder. That sheriff was out and my dad was brought in. Everybody hated him, in part because they loved the old sheriff and also because my dad was an outsider. Even though he came from about 2 towns over, he wasn't of their world, so he could never be fit to see over the village. And it didn't help that my dad was a raging asshole with a stick up his butt for the rules. One day, my dad was dressed in his full uniform and took me alone to the local corner diner, like one of those places straight out of Roadhouse. We sat down and ate the full dinner, and my dad lectured me something about respect and the rules are all we have. Then the waitress came in, dropped the check, and my dad looked at it and it said the meal was free. My dad excused himself and went up to the waitress. I kept to myself and doodled on the napkin, and the next time I look up, my dad was full on screaming at the woman. He was straight up shaking. She tried to explain that free meals is how all cops are treated in this town, and my dad was furious that he would get special treatment, that police are put above normal laws, that the police have rules they must follow and not accepting kickbacks is one of those rules. And that it happened especially in front of his kid who he's trying to teach right. Everyone in the diner was quiet and just staring at him. It was a weird situation because it was a moment where my dad showed a lot of integrity, but also a story of a 6'7" man with a gun on his belt screaming at a tiny little waitress. It stuck in my head as a clear picture of contradictions that our parents are. Like, a lot of the good comes from them, but at the same time a lot of the bad. My mom once called Domino's regional corporate office or some shit because a pizza I ordered for her that I paid for was too expensive. She did get 4 free pizza vouchers out of it, but I'm so glad I was not around for the embarrassment of it all. I ordered it online for my job in the next state. Why? Because she wanted pizza.